The Seattle Storm are sending Jewell Loyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a blockbuster three-team trade that moves Kelsey Plum to the LA Sparks. That's according to ESPN. As part of the deal, Seattle receives the second pick in this year's WNBA draft from LA in exchange for the Storm's number 9 pick, while the Aces also receive the 13th pick, a second-round selection from the Sparks.
Kelsey Plum is leaving Vegas for the spotlight of Los Angeles, away from A'ja Wilson's dominance.
Loyd is a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ with Seattle, while Plum is a 3-time All-Star with 2 titles of her own out in Las Vegas.
Kelsey Plum's trade to the LA Sparks in a 3-team deal has rocked the WNBA. Is this the start of the Las Vegas Aces' downfall, and who's to blame? Let's find out.
Loyd to Vegas, Plum to LA. Just how does this maybe impact the landscape of the Western Conference? And I kind of want to also throw in the league as a whole, getting some of these big pieces now in new places.
Imagine scrolling through your phone when, out of nowhere, bam, the news hits. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter, is leaving the Las Vegas Aces. But here's the twist. She's been traded to the LA Sparks in a major 3-team deal that has the entire WNBA talking.
We have been hearing for a little while the reporting of Annie Costabile at the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as Roberta Rodriguez with Beta Basket. We've been hearing that Jewell Loyd, especially after the investigation with the Seattle Storm, was likely on the move. And then, of course, Kelsey Plum was cored by the Aces, though she was considered, and still is technically considered, one of the top draws in free agency as an unrestricted free agent.
Let's break it down because this isn't your typical trade. Plum to the Sparks, Jewell Loyd to the Aces, and the Sparks prized number 2 draft pick to the Storm. It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs, but with superstars as the players. This move is shaking up the entire league.
You have 2 names like that, 2 Olympians, just won gold in Paris. They are going to, as you said, draw a lot of assets. And when you see a 3-team trade, obviously this was about as many teams as possible, but especially the Seattle Storm and the Las Vegas Aces being able to get value.
You're probably wondering why the Aces would part ways with a talent like Plum. Well, that's the big question everyone's asking. Remember the rumors about tension between Plum and A'ja Wilson? Seems like there might have been some truth to that after all.
It reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, but like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
Here's where it gets even more interesting. Plum isn't just making a short-term move. Reports say she's eyeing a long-term stay with the Sparks, possibly beyond the 2025 season. It's not just a team change. It's a shift in her entire career path.
I think what we have seen in the WNBA, especially with the last collective bargaining agreement that the league is still under, though negotiating right now, we've seen a lot more player autonomy and movement, and that makes things really exciting.
The Aces aren't just swapping stars with Loyd. They're adding to their championship puzzle. But will her style fit with A'ja Wilson and the team's core? That's the real question.
Back to the Aces just very briefly, because you talked about how they were trying to get that 3-peat, but instead now maybe seeking to compete for their 3rd championship in the last 4 years, and certainly looking to build that core around A'ja Wilson. But just what does Jewell Loyd kind of add to now what the Aces are trying to build here?
Some analysts are questioning the Aces' decision. While Plum and Loyd have similar skill sets, there are concerns about Loyd's recent shooting performance. Is this a case of the Aces being overly confident in their ability to make any player fit their system?
Jewell Loyd, again, has a very similar skill set in a lot of ways to Kelsey Plum. I think of players that can play that number 2 guard in particular, maybe have the ball in their hands a time or two. But with Jewell Loyd, her execution from the corner is lethal. And with Jewell Loyd, we saw that even at the Olympics, there was some controversy there with how she was utilized, or in fact, how she was not utilized by head coach Cheryl Reeve for Team USA. And then again, there were a few things going on with Seattle, and we saw a little bit of her productivity and specifically her efficiency dip.
Don't forget about the Sparks. They're not just getting a frustrated star. They're getting a motivated one. Plum seeking a fresh start, and LA could be the perfect place for her to reignite her career. Could this be the move that puts the Sparks back in playoff contention after a tough season?
People thought they could be in contention to over and usurp the Houston Comets for that four-peat. Of course, that didn't come to pass. The New York Liberty are champions, let's not forget. But I think it's just a little bit of a different culture change. And I think with that, it means that Kelsey Plum, if she does go to LA, will be utilized for some of her experience and her leadership.
All right, let's talk about the domino effect of this trade. You thought it was just about Plum, Lloyd, and a draft pick. Think again. This move is shaking up the entire WNBA, and we're about to feel some serious shockwaves.
She will be paired alongside last year's number 2 overall pick, Cameron Brink, who was off to a fantastic rookie year before that season-ending injury. I mean, that's a 3-time All-Star. We talk about 2 titles, but just looking at her joining that, what kind of expertise, what kind of knowledge, what can that really do for, I don't want to use this, but what kind of spark can that be for the Sparks out there in LA? I had to use it.
Picture this. The LA Sparks, who were stuck at the bottom last season, have just catapulted themselves into the spotlight. They've got Kelsey Plum now, and she's not just any player. She's a sharpshooter eager to be the main star. And in LA, she's finally got her chance.
I think you're right. With Cameron Brink coming back, hopefully very healthy from injury, as you mentioned, she was a dynamic force for that LA team. I think it's the overall organization and some of the things, again, that this is a legacy franchise. The Los Angeles Sparks played in the first ever WNBA basketball game. And again, we've seen other teams just build a little bit more infrastructure around their players.
The Sparks didn't just gain a star, they gave up the number 2 draft pick, potentially missing out on a generational talent like Olivia Miles or Paige Beckers. Instead, they're betting on Plum's immediate impact.
Heard a time or two the phrase hybrid rebuilds come into play. They have a new coach. They are going to have now, as has been reported, a new player in Kelsey Plum. So I think the leadership from Plum, and I think maybe the reset for Kelsey Plum, being in a new environment, maybe taking on a different role, because she's coming from the Las Vegas Aces.
The Aces traded Plum for Lloyd, which seems fair on the surface, but Lloyd's shooting is a concern. She finished last season with just 36%, while Plum shot 43%. That's a big difference.
He was on the Olympic team, of course, has been with the Aces for some years. She just had her jersey retired by her alma mater in Washington. So there's a lot of great things. And I do want to say, I was in Paris for the Summer Olympics, and we got to speak to Kelsey Plum. She had a few things off the court going on, and she talked about just leaning into her faith and being so blessed, and just kind of almost laughing at all of the things that were going on outside of basketball.
The Aces might have disrupted their chemistry. Plum wasn't just a scorer, she was a playmaker. With Lloyd, they've got a pure scorer, but who's setting up those easy buckets? Meanwhile, the Seattle Storm are sitting pretty with the number 2 pick. Imagine Paige Beckers in a Storm jersey. That could be the start of something big for Seattle.
Like the Las Vegas Aces, who they have a few moving pieces and moving parts. You can't always keep a championship team together. I don't know for sure, but I wonder if also this is maybe just a really important, even personal reset for Kelsey Plum. And again, there have been reports that the same could be in play here for Jewel Lloyd.
Yeah, that puts things certainly in a different perspective, at least for her in her career.
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't. And I'm sad about that, because I really like that group. They were a pain in my ass, but I was a pain in their ass too.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the best teammate, because that's how I get the best out of my team. Everybody can be good here and there, but who can be great every single game, every possession? And that's when I try.